Tekken 8 Season 2. We are all waiting and praying that it's a good update that revitalizes Tekken after a really big roller coaster of a first year. So the trailer announced that it'd be coming in spring, but if you've never watched Bandai Namco trailers and like Tekken announcements, you might not know that that really doesn't mean a lot. So first of all, my wish list for season 2 is going to be split into sections. Okay, so I'm going to cover my top priorities. I'm going to cover high priorities and like nice to haves. And these are like the essentials or what I think are likely to come. And then after, I'll cover my own personal wish list and what I really hope the direction of Tekken will be, regardless of how realistic I think it'll be. Anyways, I was talking about the release date of season 2. This is the Tekken 7 announcement trailer. And it said early 2017 would be the release date for Tekken 7. Tekken 7 released in June 2nd, 2017. Okay? So their idea of early 2017 is not really in alignment with what I think most people would say. Okay? So when Tekken 8 Season 2 says coming this spring, that's a grain of salt spring if you ask me. That said, I do hope it comes around March. I think that would line up well. March or April would line up well with the start of a new Tekken World Tour. I believe the first tournament matches for the Tekken World Tour this past year in 2024 started in April. So I think for like a healthy tour duration, and March or April would make a lot of sense. And I hope that's when the updates come. Okay, while I talk about my wish list, I have some gameplay to share. And then we'll also dive into some in-game situations as well to demonstrate some of the things I'm wishing for. Okay, so the top priorities that I think Tekken 8 needs in Season 2. Ranked mode and the netcode above anything else, I think need changing. I think the ability to play the game and retain people playing the game is a top priority, right? Well, you can talk about balance, you can talk about game design, but if people can't even enjoy the game online because it's too laggy, your opponent's PC slows down your frame rate, right? Like, all of these issues are so crucial. There are lots of like high profile streamers that I worked with for like the Say Jam Slam that I think would be playing Tekken more if the netcode and the ranked mode were better, right? So that's a huge priority to me. And it's not only just for like more casual people, it's also for high level players. I think the fact that you can be playing the game for 2 months, hit the top rank, and then start fighting against the same people who've been playing the game for like 10, 15 years and are like really, really good at a pro level is on one hand a good thing. But I think having a smoother skill curve between the top rank and the super S tier pros is healthier. The pros get higher quality matches that incentivize them to log on more. If they're fighting for real leaderboard spots, it keeps them retained and kind of pushing their gameplay as well as playing the online ranked system. And it gives these top-ranked players something to aspire to. At this point, I think Tekken could literally copy the homework of any real ranked system that we have from any other game. My best example, personally, would probably be the Street Fighter MR system. I think it would be really cool if you hit God of Destruction and then you start fighting for leaderboard spots, right? Real leaderboard spots. And if the pros are pushing in an elo system rather than an abusable point system that's kind of arbitrary to get higher spots, get like cosmetic rewards, get a fancy banner, any of those things I think would help a lot. So I really hope that these two are the biggest priority in Season 2. And I think that it's crucial for Tekken 8 to have any longevity. There's so much competition. There's so much competition now with other games, Marvel Rivals, other fighting games, 2XKO on the horizon. If you don't have a game that lets you play it online, I just don't think you'll keep up in this market, right? There are so many other games that people would just log on to play just because they can. Just because the game lets them. There's so many people who want to play Tekken 8 that they boot up and get frustrated because it feels like the game doesn't want them to play it, okay? And that's before we even get to the actual hardware issues, which was my next point, PC stability and performance. I'm harping on these two, and I've already said why. You gotta be able to play the game. Aside from those two components, I would say that the Tekken World Tour could use a lot more promotion. I felt like a lot of tournaments people found out about because content creators or Twitter were active about it. I felt like I spent a lot of the Tekken World Tour finals, like a couple weeks before, trying to hype up the event because Bandai Namco wasn't really doing it. We didn't hear any stories about rivalries. We didn't hear about player histories. Like, Bandai Namco could do segments on Arslan Ash versus Knee, or how Ulsan dominated in the Esports World Cup against Atif. The two players who were seemingly the best going into the finals got like no hype leading up to the event. I think that promoting the World Tour, promoting the finals, and using the in-game client to show when tournaments are happening would be so good. Outside of the finals, during the main competitive season for the Tekken World Tour, there were so many tournaments every week, it was hard to keep track of. My job at the time, I took it upon myself to try and cover every tournament, and I was falling behind on tournaments, right? So how is the casual viewer going to be able to keep up with tournaments unless they boot up the game and maybe see it, right? Not everybody's on Twitter, not everybody's on YouTube, not everybody's on Reddit. So I think that there's a huge opportunity here to promote your pro scene, the viewer interest, through the in-game client. Namco, promote your events. And then lastly, I think bug fixes are obviously important. People in Tekken, there's so many situations that are confusing. Having bugs on top of that make it unclear whether it was your fault, whether it was the system, whether it was a latest update or something like that. I think that it's important to have clarity on why things are the way they are and why they aren't. And prioritizing bug fixes will be a big deal. And to be fair, the dev team is doing this, right? They are prioritizing a lot of bug fixes. A lot of the patches arguably are frustrating because they're more bug fixes than balance fixes, right? I will talk about my opinion on balance and like frequent updates later, but I think fixing bugs is pretty crucial. And given this was the first year of Tekken, I'm pretty hopeful that they'll keep doing that. Those are my top priority fixes. I kept the list really small because I really want to harp on how I think these are the biggest deal going forward for Tekken. I think if the characters are stupid, if the balance is dumb, that's obviously a point of frustration. But ultimately, if you can play the game with friends, if you can log on and have a rank system that encourages you to keep coming back, as whether you're a high-level player or a mid-level or low-level player, having these incentives, the like cosmetic reward, I should have put that down, like cosmetic rewards and stuff like that, seasonal rewards, right? Having these points of interaction, I think, are so crucial in the modern gaming market, right? So I hope Tekken prioritizes these. The netcode is known to be deteriorating. You'll see a lot of high-level Korean players deteriorating. Typing that while speaking is hard. High-level Korean players are complaining that the connection with Japan is no longer as good as it used to be. And in Tekken 7, we had a history of good netcode updates, like the Season 4 update, and then slight deterioration every single patch after that. So I pray that they fix the netcode, because even if I'm never a tournament player again, even if I can't hit the top rank when they add this like grandmaster tier or whatever, right? At least if I can play with my friends consistently, that would help me a lot to stay engaged with the game. And I know people who stay in like Discord communities or just play lobbies in general, this is crucial to keeping them engaged. All right, I've harped on that enough. Let's talk about high priority and nice to have changes, again, in what I think are the essential or likely to happen tier, separate from my own personal wishes. Legacy costumes. I talked about netcode and stability, being able to play your game. Costumes, I feel like, are everything also in this market, right? There are so many legacy Tekken costumes we don't have. Nina's costume from Tekken 5, Tekken 4. Let me pause. Well, I'll let the round finish, but I want to show these legacy costumes because they're so cool. The designs are so good. And I know it takes a lot of work to... good shit, Trizzy. Nice win. Like, Nina Tekken 5. Like, I feel like there are so many unrepresented costumes. I know they take work to integrate, right? Like to update and like refine a model to fit into a modern game is not easy. That's really hard, right? Okay, this is Tekken 2. Tekken 3, these are iconic costumes. People love these. I can't zoom in anymore. People love these costumes. If you put them in the game, people will spend money on these. I know Street Fighter has the same issue, that like costumes are not coming in at a rate where fans would, at the rate that fans would consume them. You know, I think these are a huge deal. And that's crazy. I didn't know she had a swimsuit in Death by Degrees. I think this is a huge untapped point of effort for Tekken. And I think this is a huge priority, again, to get people to keep playing. And not just keep playing, but if your issue is income and revenue, this is a huge revenue stream. right? And Tekken is doing a better job of it. But to be honest, I think legacy costumes would have more pull than these costume packs. Personally, that's my own bias as an old school Tekken fan. I also think in tournaments, having exhibition mode, I think Dead or Alive 5 had this, where you can use these legacy costumes in tournament only, would be so sick. Like, turn off like the ability to earn fight money or things like that. Just let people have these costumes offline, and then your tournaments get more fun to watch too. I miss the days where tournaments had, like, you would see a character on screen with a certain costume and you know who it'd be, right? If you think of like Super Smash Bros. Melee, people would own a certain like color if they played Fox, like Orange Fox. There was a point of pride with rocking a character's color or custom. And I think Tekken could be the same way if you have this exhibition mode. Like, oh, we know this Nina player for this costume, but this other Nina player, Arslan Ash, loves this one for some reason, right? I think that element of fighting games could come back if we get these costumes in tournament, whatever way they're able to do it, right? Anyways, I think that's a high priority, and I really put that a little bit below like ranked mode and netcode because they are making these changes, but it's a high priority for me, right? Like Keisuke with the white Kazuya, right? I think that's a perfect example, and we need more. All right, after that, I have what I think are easy to add or nice to have, right? Pre-compiling shaders after an update. Every time the game patches, when you load into an online set, the stage lags a bit. And then if you lag too much, the game does that auto correction where it lowers your graphics settings. I think that's such a big point of frustration every time an update happens. It'd be cool if there was a way to just spend a little more loading time after an update to make sure everything loads automatically. I don't have to go into practice mode and load every stage, break every stage hazard. I can just start playing ranked and everything works without lagging. I think that's a big deal. In lobbies, I think it'd be cool to have player win counters. Make it a toggleable option. Maybe you want a casual lobby where people don't care if they're winning or losing. You can turn that option off. But I know for a lot of competitive people, sometimes it could be fun seeing, like, you do a 3-man lobby, who has the most wins in this lobby, right? I think that there is an element of that FGC competitiveness that can be added back if you include like win counters, right? Or just keeping track of your score over multiple 1st to 10s when you're doing training sets. I think that also matters. That said, also being able to change your lobby settings without remaking, like the settings of the rounds themselves or the publicity of the lobby, or like having a passcode. I don't know why this is so difficult. I think a lot of games that do lobby systems, you have to remake the whole lobby. So this is a bit of a stretch goal. I don't know how easy it is to do, but I think it'd be a nice quality of life thing for people who mostly play lobbies. Random side select for online is a specific change that me and some other tournament players are interested in, right? Because when you go offline, if you don't know, you don't both get to play on player one side. Even if there's 2 monitors, it's one console. So one player's on the left, one player's on the right. And having online as the main training platform as North American players, I think it would be cool to be able to hop into ranked, hop into quick match, hop into lobbies, randomize the side you're on until you load into the game. It won't affect how your opponent is, but for me personally, being able to practice without switching manually, I think would be a nice little quality of life fix that in my mind would be easy to put in. I can't take credit for this idea. Speedkicks put out a tweet like 6 months ago about making this change, but I think it would be a cool fix. And to me, it just seems very doable. Tournament mode, rematch with the same stage. Tons of tournaments, especially in the new TWT rule set, need to have a random stage selected every match, right? Even if both players agree to the same stage, the rule set says you need to random every time. This led to a lot of time loss when somebody accidentally hits the in-game rematch option, and then you have to, because you can't pause in tournament mode, you have to let them kill you for 3 rounds, then pick the stage. It's a big, like, burnt time thing. When, to me, if you could just put the tournament rules in the game and have it rematch automatically with the random stage, you save tournament time, you help people prepare for tournaments easier at offline locals. It just seems smoother, and I would hope that it's just a manpower issue, right? Like, the dev time is too difficult to allocate to small changes like this, but these quality of life changes would be really cool, I think, for tournament players and for people who play offline and want to just have that tournament experience. It doesn't have to be super competitive, but just imitating the stuff you see in competitive would be cool. And then this is a personal thing, kind of, I think, but like more single player modes like team battle or survival. In the old Tekken games, I played these modes all the time. I thought it was cool to challenge myself against the CPU. Even though I like eventually became someone who loved PvP in Tekken Tag 2, I loved the survival modes and like seeing the high scores or like how many rounds can I get. Same with team battle. And I know that like in the modern era, there's a lot of like scripting and cheating you can do. Maybe like speedrun strategies or exploit strategies. But to me, all of this is kind of cool. Like I think that these changes would be really cool single player additions for audiences that don't just want to play online and be competitive. And then finally, I put this as low priority, but I think this is actually pretty high priority. If you could watch TWT matches in the lounge, I think that would be super awesome. Arslan almost losing and keeping it together. This was a really hype match, like final round. Anyways, watching TWT matches in the lounge would be really cool. I played 2XKO recently during the beta, and in the lobbies where people were fighting, you could spectate their match on the screen that they were playing at. So I don't know how hard that is to implement, but it would be so cool to actually have more pull to be in the lobby outside of just playing games, right? So I'm switching the match footage to Frosty Faustings, the most recent like regional / major that Tekken 8 had. Yeah, I think that would be such a cool change. I doubt it would come. I imagine it's technically a bit more difficult if they haven't done it already. But man, wouldn't that be cool to spectate either people's matches at the cabinet they're at with the screen, or the big screen showing a recent tournament match. It doesn't even have to be live. Just have it be a tournament match, a pro match, you know? Anyways, that covers what I think are the essentials, right? The top priority being a lot of like hardware and netcode changes, and then the other high priority stuff being like cosmetics and then just stability. I'm a big stability and being able to play the game person. I come from an era where like Super Smash Bros. Melee didn't really have patches, right? Old like Tekken 5 DR is a patch for Tekken 5, but most fighting games I played stayed the same the whole time I played it until the next game came out. So I know we're in a different era now, but I have that bias towards a game being kind of fixed and a set known value or set of systems, and then trying to discover as much as you can about it. So that's why what I think are essential is just the ability to play, the ability to interact. Extra learning tools are always nice. But I know that those take a bit of work to implement and it might take more time. But I want you to understand that that's my bias as we go into the personal wish list, where I don't think these are necessarily going to happen at all. I have no way of knowing if the dev team even agrees with me remotely on these. But if I could design my own Tekken 8, these are the changes I would want to make. And for this, I'm going to pause the gameplay and actually go into the game. And I want to show some of these situations, okay? Take a sip of water. Heat changes. I'm generally okay with the heat system. I think that a lot of the heat problems are character specific. I think certain characters have heat that's way too strong. But you can look at like Lee Chaolan. When you fight him, does his heat feel unbalanced? No. So why don't we make everybody else's heat feel like his? Where he's a bit stronger, he gets a launching forward 3, but he doesn't break the game entirely with his heat mode. I think if more characters had weaker heat on a character by character basis, it could be cool, personally. The one change I definitely want on a systemic level, the one thing that I think could be done universally that would make a lot of sense, is having Heat Dash add frames instead of forcing a fixed frame value. So what do I mean? No matter what Heat Dash move you use, if your opponent blocks it, it becomes +5. You can look at the frame data here in this bottom left. This move is normally +6. If I Heat Dash it, it's +5. Elisa has the same thing. If she goes into Heat and does this 2-hit string, it becomes +5. Oh, I did not activate Heat. Hold up. Opponent's Heat. No heat limit. All right, fix that setting. Elisa's going to go into Heat. She's going to do this 2-hit string, and she's +5, right? This is how the Heat Dash mechanic works. Every time you Heat Dash, no matter what the character, you get +5. But this feels weird from a balance perspective. Elisa's string normally, that same string, is -12. So I get a guaranteed punish if I block it. And being optimal, I get this. If she hits this Heat Dash string, I get launched, right? So she gets rewarded for hitting it. But the move goes from -12 to +5. Let's contrast this with Steve. Now, this is not a downplay session, but This seems weird. This move is +6. If I heat dash it, I get a worse move. Yes, it becomes a launcher, but it's only +5 now. To me, that heavily skews the risk reward in a strange direction, where I'm assuming the same risk for doing this move and getting less reward expending the rest of my heat. There are more extreme cases of this too, like Nina's armor, which is normally unsafe, but getting an armor move that becomes +5 on block is kind of game warping, right? So it is simple. The one thing I like about this change is that it's simple to understand. It's simple to understand that the opponent heat dashes their +5. You don't have to learn character specific stuff. You just know every character +5, my options become pretty stable. And I do like that. I like the idea of consistent rules that are easy to pick up and understand as a defender or as a new player coming into the game, right? That said, I think that it creates strange power level issues where characters have strings that normally have weaknesses or assumed risk that become extremely powerful once you go into heat, right? I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from, is that some characters have this, some characters don't. And I think that's a big deal. I'm going to talk more about these strings and stuff later, but I would also love an improved backdash. I think backdash canceling feels good for certain characters, feels weird for other characters, but ultimately, the big frustration a lot of people have with Tekken 8 is that you are never really able to disengage from like the hot zone. The hot zone of, I have to sidestep to survive, I have to block to survive, I have to guess right, you know? I think Tekken 8 was designed to be aggressive, and they've fulfilled that philosophy arguably too perfectly, in the sense that I think that the player base and the general health of the community would benefit from being able to do a bit of disengagement in order to create more games around the spacing and movement that Tekken is known for. I think sidestepping and sidewalking in neutral is stronger in this game. I'll have a video coming out that hopefully clarifies some of these issues later with sidestepping and tracking. But in general, I believe sidewalking in neutral is pretty good, especially if you fight against a Mishima. It's a lot more comfortable than it used to be. I think improving the backdash as well to give people more gameplay outside of just go in and force your mix-up would be helpful, right? To be clear, I do believe there's counterplay in a lot of these situations. Like if you're fighting a Lydia, you can sidestep her moves that go into stance. But there's so much instability because you're forced to stay in the hot seat, attack, or make some counterplay. There's not a lot of tactical gameplay around spacing, which I personally enjoy in a Tekken game. Well, there is tactical gameplay, but it's less focused on that. It's a lot more focused on this hot zone of up-close fighting, sidestepping, mashing, frame trapping, etc. Okay, reducing string tracking is a huge thing, and they are taking steps to do this. It needs to be much more, if you ask me. So, if you sidestep the first hit of a string, usually, for most characters, the second hit will still track you. Like this, right? I think this, again, skews things heavily in the realm of aggressive attacking rather than using your Tekken movement and defensive knowledge to create counterplay. Here's a great example where they are starting to make changes. In the most recent update, or maybe a patch ago, Dragunov got a change to his 2-hit string that made it easier to sidestep the second hit after the first hit whiffs. I think it was 2 patches ago, because Clive got it last time, right? So I do jab, back 4-3. Doing a jab before the move allows you to stabilize the timing and make it easier to figure out if it's steppable or not, right? So after this jab, and I step right, the second hit completely whiffs. It used to be like Elisa's string, where if you step the first hit, the second one would track you, right? So the old counterplay used to be sidestep duck, which is cool. I like high APM defense like that, but that's very difficult and kind of, in my opinion, unfair or unreasonable when he has the mid option, right? So if you sidestep duck this, and the mid hit you, it's kind of like, well, that feels horrible. And yes, Tekken has these RPS situations, but the ability to use your movement to control your opponent's offense is a hallmark of the series, and I would like to see more string tracking nerfed, where if I sidewalk cleanly, let me dodge the second hit as well. Now, that said, if you press a button too early after the first sidewalk, you will usually get hit by the second hit because of hurtbox expansion. That's the topic I want to elaborate on in the sidestepping video I eventually do. But as you can see, they are capable of making these fixes. Dragunov doesn't have that issue that Elisa just demonstrated, where she will track me with the second hit. I think changes like that will de-incentivize people from forcing their offense with button, 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 string, 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 and add more of that movement and kind of like slower movement-based combat that Tekken is kind of known for, right? That's my take. All right, emphasize character weaknesses. So one of my biggest gripes with Tekken's design for a long time, since Tekken 7, was this idea that characters need their weaknesses covered up, right? And if you look at this Season 2 announcement trailer, you see every character gets a new move. So Law gets like a strong aerial tailspin, right? This buffs his combo game. But Law is already so strong in like offense and neutral. Does he need more combo game? Same with Paul. Does Paul need more combo damage? One of the biggest things I think about, like Feng Wei, for example. Since his introduction, Feng Wei has been an incredibly strong Tekken character who has amazing neutral tools, poking tools, offensive tools, defensive tools. But his weakness was that his combo game was kind of lackluster. So he had to interact with you a lot in order to kill you. In Tekken 7 and going into Tekken 8, they've continued to buff his combo game, Feng Wei. So by covering up his weaknesses, he just became an objectively strong character that has like almost no downside. I think Tekken is at its coolest when characters have defined weaknesses, because you get to see unique counterplay. You get to see unique strategies rather than both characters running at each other, spamming their best moves, which is what a lot of high-level Tekken became at the start of Tekken 8. And I have talked about this before. I have other videos on this. I can link them below, where I really harp on this issue. And I think that the most hype matches we got in the Tekken World Tour, let me pull this up actually. World's Best Steve PhiDX. I think the best match we got out of the Tekken World Tour was a match between a Steve and a Hwoarang player, right? Two characters not in the top tier, still very strong, but because they have defined weaknesses, you got to see a lot of Tekken-style interaction where both players got to flex some of their strengths and flex their defense as ways of countering what the opponent was doing, right? So like this little mini outplay right here, just look at this. Hwoarang does down forward 2, Steve sidesteps it to the right and jabs him, right? If Hwoarang were an S tier character, that down forward 2 probably tracks both ways, right? So you never get to sidestep, you just have to block and guess, you know? So this is just one example of where I think characters with defined weaknesses lead to cooler Tekken. So the fact that Season 2 is adding moves always gives me pause, because they tend to add moves that cover character weaknesses. That's more popular from a player standpoint. People love buffs. They hate nerfs to their characters. But overall, for the health of the game, as spectators and as players, I prefer nerfs almost all around every time, with rare exceptions. Okay. Along these lines of not patching up characters' weaknesses into like kind of imposing, I hate to use this word this way, it sounds weird, but like I can't think of a better way to phrase it. Imposing like an agenda on a character in the sense that like, oh, I think they should not have this weakness, let's put this in. I wish I had a better way to phrase that, but I wish they kept more unintended behavior in the game. Here's a perfect example. Devil Jin had a combo ender that was really creative. After this up laser, they would do heat burst while rising 3 into Morning Crow into a cross up. I think this is really cool. I think the fact that players took the time to understand the Tekken 8 system, understand their character, and understand and create this cool Okazemi situation was really sick. The answer is to just stay down, I believe. But this got patched out. In general, people sharing tech on Twitter has become kind of a scary thing to do, because the devs are watching Twitter and they will patch these things out. And so it becomes, I think it leads to a bit of a toxic environment where it's scary to share information because stuff might get removed. Your character might get nerfed or weakened. And I kind of don't like that. I like the idea of rewarding creativity rather than punishing it, if that makes sense. So you're encouraged to keep the tech secret, and you're not really encouraged to explore the game outside of the intended systems, because it'll probably get removed. To me, that rubs me the wrong way. As somebody who's a fan of like speedrunning culture and like old fighting game exploits, Korean backdash exists as an exploit, right? Exploit of the system. And I think gameplay is cooler because of it, right? In the same way, yes, there's some egregious examples of system abuse, but to me, this doesn't even seem that bad. He gets a follow-up on the ground. Yoshimitsu has tons... This isn't whataboutism, by the way. Yoshimitsu objectively has a bunch of situations where you do have to just stay down, or you'll get a worse punishment. Why did they not remove that, but they removed Devil Jins? Now, I hate Devil Jin, okay? Devil Jin has bullied me for so many Tekkens. So this isn't even Devil Jin defending. It's just, I don't like the philosophy of removing unintended behavior unless it's truly, truly game-breaking. Jun Kazama had some of these combos. Lily had one of these combos. It's a philosophy thing. Along those lines, I am a fan of keeping the system as consistent as possible and making character balance changes. I don't like system-wide changes because I think grasping how much impact it has, even as a community, is really hard. Let me show you an example from early Tekken 8. Devil Jin, again, coincidental, had this combo where he would heat burst into heat dash. So there's no guaranteed follow-up usually. The opponent does this flop over. Devil Jin could do Heaven's Gate to smash them into the ground. And this used to break the floor. But because Devil Jin was abusing this combo, rather than nerfing Devil Jin alone, targeting the character, they did a system-wide change where if the opponent is grounded, stage hazards no longer activate. Now, whether or not you agree with this change, my problem with this change, one, is it's a bit heavy-handed to see one character abusing a system and then changing it for everybody. But on the other hand, it also creates visual, like a lack of clarity. If you're a brand new Tekken player, you've never played Tekken before, you see that a move slams people into the ground and breaks the floor. And you're not keeping up with the patch notes. And then all of a sudden, you do this, you slam them into the floor, and it doesn't break. Why didn't it break? Oh, there's a very specific rule that if you grounded them with a heat burst into heat dash combo, then the stage hazard doesn't activate. That just increases the complexity of Tekken in a very inelegant way. I think Tekken has beautiful complexity with the way the 3D system works at different frame advantages, the way that spacing is very fluid. I like that complexity. But having hard rule, exception to the hard rule, exception to the exception without any kind of intuition to build, is just a preset rule, feels very weird to me. So I don't like this change. I think balancing Devil Jin specifically would have been a much better fix. And here are some of the consequences. Look at this. This is months after that patch. This Lee player put out this tweet with the Tekken 8 report because he believed he ran into a bug. Right? So he does this wall combo. He does this wake-up trap, but the wall doesn't break. Now, my understanding of why the wall didn't break is because here, the opponent is considered grounded. So when he does this wake-up trap, they're still considered grounded and the hazard won't activate. This is a God of Destruction player. He definitely understands the systems of the game, more or less, right? We can make an argument about how robust the rank system is, but I believe he understands the systems more or less. This is still confusing to him. Imagine how confusing it'd be for a total brand new player. This is a case where I think the system behaved as intended. I don't agree with the intention, but this is where I believe it behaved as intended. Here is a more confusing case. This one truly does not make sense to me. Look at Reina do this. Oh my god, that was loud. I'm sorry. Look at Reina do this. Double hell sweep on the ground. It doesn't break the wall. Double hell sweep on the ground. It doesn't break the wall. Double hell sweep on the ground. It broke the wall. Did you see any difference in what they did? Right? This makes sense, right? They're grounded. It shouldn't break the wall. That's what they said. But with the heavy-handed system change also comes unforeseen bugs. And here it just doesn't work again. So, I don't know why this is the case. But that is another reason I disagree with system changes. I think unless enough time is taken to truly understand the ins and outs of the system, all of the impacts involved, you get a bunch of unintended behavior that is more confusing, more convoluted. I like leaving systems alone. I'm old school in that way, maybe. But I think that the game is cooler when the systems are the same, you make a few character tweaks, and you let people explore. Some of the coolest games, Super Smash Bros. Melee, I keep bringing it up because the system has remained the same forever. Right? There's new tech with like new controllers and defensive strategies, but the game fundamentally is the same. And people's ability to push themselves and push the system comes from having a stable environment. So the fact that Tekken is changing its systems, in Tekken 7, they added wall bouncing. They added a bunch of other mechanics too. They took out some jump over tech because Akuma could abuse it, and then he could abuse it again anyways. Like, let's see. Is this even here in Tekken? Like, I haven't looked at this video, but Akuma had a bunch of ways to abuse this system, and instead of nerfing Akuma, they nerfed everybody's ability to do it. And then it turned out Akuma had other abusive stuff as well. This isn't the tech trap I was talking about. This might be it. I'll look at like one more and then we'll move on. This is cool. Like, this is a cool combo thing, but... Okay. Wait, what? Anyways, I don't know if we're going to find it, but... oh, here we go. After patch 5.01. So 5.01 nerfed the jump over situations, right? But Akuma players found out they could do this and still create a cross-up where if you tech roll, it'll hit you in the back, right? So this is why I disagree with system changes, is unless you are super good and take a lot of time to understand everything that's right and wrong with the system, you can worsen the problem, you can not even solve it in the first place, and it changes people's intuitive understanding of the game. And in a game like Tekken, where everybody has 10 million options all the time, I think giving people intuitive consistency will keep player attention. People take a break for 2 months. If they come back to a different game, Tekken is already hard to come back to after a week, right? If you make them come back to a different game after months, I think people will just drop the game and play something else. So that's a big deal to me. I'm talking so much. I'm so thirsty. Okay. Other issue. You see how I switched back to Elisa and all of my defensive presets are gone? They did add a change where if you record something, for example, like 1, 2, and then you fully leave like the practice mode altogether, and then when you go to practice mode, you load the exact same characters in again, then it should save your settings, right? In those very specific cases. And I will say, it's cool that they are trying. But I get the hunch that Tekken 8 may have been so hastily developed, or the developers are understaffed, or one reason or another, that the code just didn't support an easy way to save practice mode settings across characters by default, like Street Fighter does, right? So because I booted up the exact same conditions, Elisa should still have these defensive options, right? It's still saved, thank goodness, right? So if I'm practicing only Elisa, hopping into ranked, practicing only Elisa, and like going between matches, it'll save it. But as soon as I switch to a different character, it gets overridden. And I think in a game with so many options, so many cool drills you can develop, having presets or save slots for practice mode would help so many people improve faster and just get over the frustration of playing this ridiculous game with 10 million different options at once. I want to have a drill saved right away. I want to post in a video a drill and have people download that drill or set it up and never have to do it again. Wouldn't that be so sick? I would love if Street Fighter had this too, where you had like a default practice settings like preset where it'll load, say, I don't know, a throw break trainer without you having to program it yourself. I think that's really cool. Tekken should add that. More simple characters. So I'm also kind of an old head in this sense, but every character in this game already has heat mode, right? Heat mode is a layer of complexity. On top of that, every character has some kind of stance or buff mechanic or install or stacks that is just so difficult to recommend. Somebody says, hey, I want to learn like the base level of Tekken. Who do I pick? I don't know who to tell them. It used to be someone like Claudio, but even Claudio, like, this is coming as someone, I have experience with Claudio, I have experience with Tekken. Even for me, when I want to just kind of chill and learn a new character, Claudio is not that simple because he has the starburst mechanic, right? So my combos change depending whether I have the buff available or not, right? Because he strikes this damn pose, I can't do the same combos unless I already have the buff, right? I don't know what it is. Okay, I'm not going to pretend like I know this combo, okay? But Claudio has different combos where he can loop 2-1-2 because he doesn't stay striking that pose. You know what I mean? I think having a character or at least 2 characters available that are like dead simple would be so cool. Kazuya doesn't have a buff or an install, but he has a wave dash and high execution, right? So this is an extra layer of complexity that is also unique to him. You could argue Jin Kazama is probably the easiest, but is he really the only character we have available to pick like a non-install mechanic for? I think that the game could afford to have people or have characters that have cool designs inherently based on how they interact with their tools rather than slapping a level up system, a stacking system on top of it and creating this, again, kind of shoehorned way of interaction. It's in the same style, in my mind, of removing unintended behavior and making system-wide changes and not emphasizing character weaknesses. It feels like less thought is being put into how the character functions and how the character operates with their moves, and more thought is being put to, well, wouldn't it be cool if this character did this? And the fact that that vision alone is the only way to pursue the character, I think is part of the reason people feel Tekken 8 can be one-dimensional at times, is because there is the 1 or 2 correct ways that it feels prescribed to play a character, rather than, again, having stylistic differences. That this is just my opinion, okay? Maybe some of you think installs are really cool. Me personally, I'm a fan of Tekken that had less stances, less installs, less buffs. The heat system I can accept because I think it has cool elements in a fixed window of time or a window of strength, right? And I think heat alone is already a lot. So I think the fact that the installs and stances are coming on top of that is too much for me personally, right? I like the idea that I can spend my heat to do this cool extension, right? As someone who played Tekken 7, I'm used to having rage as a resource, right? So in Tekken 7, rage didn't just give you rage art, it also gave you these empowered moves, like a rage drive is what it was called, which is kind of what heat smashes are now. But again, I think adding buff combos that change, buff systems that like change your combos or moves by force, right? The fact that Claudio cannot control his combos as well anymore because of this buff system, right? Again, this is kind of a skill issue. This is me complaining because I didn't want to learn separate combos in and out of Starburst. But I can imagine a noob would feel similar to me in certain ways, right? I don't think that's a crazy request to have a character that's pretty straightforward to learn, doesn't have tons of stances, doesn't have tons of mechanics on top of just the basic Tekken, and allowing them to learn the game. I think that would be cool to have. Finally, this is a really, really personal pet peeve that is not even that essential to change, but is a big deal to me. I think this trend of characters having multiple strikes for one button input really bothers me. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Steve, his Gatling gun punches like this used to be, you had to press 1 and 2 manually, right? You had to press 1 and 2 manually to do each punch. And yeah, you could still do it, right? You could still do it if you really want to, like hitting both buttons, but it's not the same. The feedback of a button press to a hit is really cool to me. And there is a trend in Tekken where characters are losing this, right? Take a look at Clive. When you do down back 2, he does 2 hits. Down back 2, 1 is the 3-hit string. But the input mechanics feel weird because you can't really tell when the 1 is valid if you're brand new. Obviously, once you play the character for a while, it makes sense. But down back 2, 1, you kind of delay the 1 or you can mash the 1. But it makes this combo so weird. You know what I mean? Down back 2, 1 is 3 hits, but the 1 is the 3rd hit, not the 2nd hit. Because I'm hitting the button 1 time and I'm getting 2. It's weird. I don't like it. The most egregious example to me is Leroy. And I think this is why I probably would have been a Leroy player if not for this. His Wing Chun multi-hit strikes, to me, are so lame. Because one button press does 50 hits. I'm exaggerating. This is a pet peeve. This is personal. This does 3 hits when I hit 1 plus 2. 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 does 6 hits. What if I could hit the button each time? Even if it's just like a blue spark for like 1 more damage, give me a reason to hit my buttons and get that feel, you know what I mean? but I don't like the feeling of tapping a button once, multiple hits happen, and then I have to like wait. You know, like I come from also like action games, so I love the idea that each button has a purpose, each input has a purpose. So it's like, this just doesn't feel that cool to me. Hitting while standing 2 and he does all those hits for me, that's not as cool. What if I had to hit 2 3 times? You know? This is very personal and is a pet peeve not worth rambling about. Anyways, let's go back to watching gameplay that isn't me. Frosty Fausting. Okay. Now, DLC wishlist. I generally don't like speculating about DLC because to me that always leads to disappointment. I think that they're never going to do what I want. So I'd rather just not have expectations and get excited when something cool comes out, you know? That said, my preferences again would be less installs and stances. More simple characters, right? I would like that. If I had to pick one, Mokujin would go crazy. Maybe if you guys are new to Tekken 8, you don't know Mokujin, but Mokujin was a character that copied other characters. So when he loaded into a round, you didn't know what character he was going to be. But he imitated their move lists. So this is Mokujin as Paul doing a combo with Law. And then they have a tag combo where now Mokujin is Law, right? And it's not just a moveset swap. Mokujin has a different sized body. This is Anna Mokujin. Mokujin has a different sized body, so certain combos work differently altogether. It's definitely a technical and balancing nightmare, but I think it's so cool. On top of that, as a like a offline FGC culture enjoyer, there's something different about someone who's way better than you picking Mokujin and you trying to beat them. You know, you play a lobby with your pro friend. His challenge is to beat you with Mokujin. And it creates interest for that player because it's a fun challenge to try different move lists and learn on the fly. It creates a fun challenge for you because it's like, yeah, I beat him. I don't care that he was using Mokujin. I got mine. You know what I mean? So I think Mokujin, like, he should totally be in Tekken, man. And not just as an avatar, but literally having him in the game. I think it's such a charming addition. I think it's so cool. I think Mokujin is just one of my favorites, and he's got to come back. I think it's going to be a technical nightmare, especially with DLC in this game, but Mokujin is so fire. Anyways, that's enough Mokujin glazing. Otherwise, I prefer legacy characters. I think that guest characters are obviously cool for drawing new attention, but I like the idea of rewarding people who have been longtime Tekken fans to come back. So I think like Miguel would be a great addition. Julia, to me, I started in Tekken 3, so Julia is like a mainstay character. Same with Lei Wulong. I know not a lot of people play Lei, not a lot of people play Anna, but I don't think it's a Tekken game without these two characters. Lei being like the Jackie Chan representation, Anna being Nina's counterpart. I think that, and a Muay Thai character as well, even though Tekken is kind of leaving the martial arts style of fighting game, I think having a Muay Thai representative is like crucial. High key. I think it's crucial. And the fact that they tried to add Azucena as kind of like a MMA overall type of character who also dances kind of like Lucky Chloe. I like Azucena as a character, but I think Tekken isn't Tekken without a Muay Thai character, you know? I'm a Christy super fan. I'm really sad they had Eddie. I like women. I think it'd be cool if Christy were in the game. Even if it were like a legacy moveset for Eddie or something, or like an alternate costume. I just like Christy. I played Tekken 4 when I was like on the cusp of becoming a pubescent boy. So I like Christy. And then successor characters that can bring back old move lists, right? Like, for example, Wang Jinrei, very popular character from old Tekkens, completely gone. He's like, and like, I don't know if he died or retired. I don't know what the official lore is, but Wang was pretty cool. He had a unique play style, this kind of like old Chinese martial art. He was super old. He was cool, and there's no character that plays like him right now, you know? There's no character that plays like Wang. So I think, like, what if they had his grandson Dong and they put him in the game and they brought his move list back? I think that'd be cool. I talk about Ichiban Kasuga. We had Negan from The Walking Dead in Tekken 7. He had a baseball bat. People want Yakuza characters. Getting Negan back in the game is probably a bit of a big ask with all the licensing, but why not take the opportunity to keep a baseball bat moveset with a new Yakuza character? You could reuse the work you did in the previous character, reuse the animations, and it would still be a fan favorite, you know? I think there's a lot of opportunities for successor characters, especially for characters where people were interested in the old playstyle, but maybe not attached to the characters. So like if you think about like, and I don't want to talk too much about Soul Calibur because it's not a big point of expertise for me, but as a casual, I love Soul Calibur 4 for like Sophitia, right? When Soul Calibur 5 came out and they took her out of the game, I instantly lost some interest, right? And to me, that's a big risk you take with like main characters, right? But Wang isn't a main character. If you put in Dong and change his moves a little bit, I think it would still appeal to people who liked the Wang aesthetic without alienating them because they already don't have a character, you know? It's not like you're removing Jin Kazama, right? I think that's different. Or removing Heihachi and then bringing him back. So yeah, this is my Season 2 wish list. We talked about the essentials, what I think are crucial for Tekken to survive, and then my own personal wish list, which has a bit more like design philosophy in it. I don't know if people will agree with it. I know people think I just shill for Bandai Namco and defend all their decisions. I try to keep it reasonable with what I think is going to happen and what I personally want to happen. Like I try to divide that. I don't think any of these changes are going to happen except maybe reduce string tracking and maybe more practice mode settings. I think they're not going to do anything I want on my personal list. And I think it's important to keep reasonable expectations when hoping to enjoy a game. I think it is better to leave and quit a game than to have unreasonable expectations and be like strung along, right? So that's my take. I hope Season 2 goes well. I hope it comes out soon. I hope people continue to enjoy Tekken. My channel is so heavily built on helping people who want to play it enjoy it. And I constantly feel for the people who feel alienated by Tekken 8, who has like that Tekken 8 has like abandoned them and kind of introduced a new way of gameplay that is not appealing at all to them at their expense for the sake of newer players. And I do feel for that. My focus though is definitely focusing on enjoying the game we have. These are my personal wishes. I will not be tripping if they don't add them. I'll be just a little bummed. Right. I bet every DLC character is going to be install and stance. I bet they're going to keep doing these one button multiple strikes. I don't think they're going to change any of these things, but I still enjoy the game. I enjoy the level of interaction. I enjoy Tekken. I enjoy the aesthetic, and I hope the game keeps going on for a long time. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and a comment. If you got nothing to say, leave an emoji. That helps a ton. Subscribe for more, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.